Well, hello everyone. Welcome to another exciting episode of Obvio Q&A. A few new faces, which is awesome. It's great to see. And people have got here early as well. Well, I mean, it seems extra early because it's morning for me, so I have to remind myself that most of you have been up and having at the end of your day. So it's easy for you to join this call. Hello, Heather. Lovely to see you again.
Good to see you.
Oh, look at this. We've got lots coming through. That's great. So this is a reminder. With questions, you can ask questions on the dashboard there where you came through, where you joined the meeting. There was a button there that says Ask a Question. And so you can post any questions about what you're thinking about with in relation to Obvio, what you're playing around with, or how you might want to do something, or there could be some sort of question you've got relating to your event. Maybe you've got a broader question about how your event might work, or we're always open to different discussions about online events and digital first events and things like that. And then also inevitably production sort of questions come up. How do I make this camera work to this and that sort of stuff? And so that generally is the flow of how we answer the questions as well. We'll tend to do the Obvio based questions first, the very specific Obvio questions first. And then we tend to allocate 2 hours. And so if you're brave, you may be here for 2 hours. We talk about all these things. I'm sure Blue will join us at some point as well, which will be good. And so we can, let me just make sure. One of the things that happens in my studio is that my speakers turn off. There we go. That's always a good test to make sure that your speakers are working, because otherwise someone would start talking and I cannot hear you. But we're all good. So, Heather, what have we got? Got a question there?
Yeah, so the first one we have is from Frank. This is quite a long one, so let me know if you need me to pause partially to answer, and then I can go back into it. He has a question about was that the pause?
Oh, okay. Pause now. Pause at the start. No, I was making sure I was just greeting Blue. Welcome, Blue. Nice to see you. I was making sure that I caught a glimpse of this question about some active campaign in HubSpot. So I was making sure that that you had your listening ears on, Blue. Got your listening ears on?
I believe those are the ones that I put on this morning when I got out of bed. Yes, sir.
Excellent. Well done. All right. As you were, Heather. Thank you.
All right, so he has a question about the integration with Active Campaign and HubSpot and getting Zoom attendees and total time directly to those integrations. Can I automate Zoom attendees and the total time spent with Zapier or directly to my HubSpot and Active Campaign? I'm going to import my event leads from Active Campaign and then make a Zapier automation for the new one coming in. Our events start this Sunday for the cocktail hour party. He also wants to double sync with HubSpot. We use it for sales. His meta question is, what is the best way to configure automation when using Zapier, Active Campaign emails, and HubSpot for sales?
Okay, so the HubSpot integration does not play well with others. So you're going to want to not use the HubSpot. If you are going to try to have HubSpot and Active Campaign and Obvio all playing together, what you're probably going to want to do is you're going to want to create a Zap that brings sales from HubSpot into Active Campaign, and then use Active Campaign as your primary sync tool between your CRM and an Obvio. And in Active Campaign, you use tags, like one tag to define an attendee. And then when we sync with ActiveCampaign, we import all tags from ActiveCampaign. So those can be used for filtering as well as for visibility rules and things like that. And then as people attend or check in, we can mark them or tag them as checked in inside of ActiveCampaign. The reason that you can't turn on HubSpot integration and any other, not just ActiveCampaign, but any other integration at the same time is because when HubSpot integration is turned on, and actually, I am fairly positive that this is the case. If the way HubSpot integration works is it works with contact lists. And you define a list inside of inside of HubSpot to be where you get your attendees from, and then Obvio checks that list on a regular basis, so like every 5 minutes or so. And if an attendee isn't in that list, they're removed from Obvio. That's how the sync works. So if you have people who come in from ActiveCampaign but don't come in from HubSpot, when both integrations are turned on, the ones who came in from ActiveCampaign but aren't also in HubSpot will wind up being deleted from Obvio. So you really can't use both at the same time. And that's just a function, truthfully, that's a function of how the HubSpot API works and how complicated it is to actually integrate third-party tools with it. All of the other integration tools that we use rely on webhooks to receive new attendees or to remove attendees. But the HubSpot webhook system is, I believe, trash would be a really complimentary thing to say of the webhook system inside of HubSpot. So we weren't actually even able to use it. We had to use like a manual sync. So as a result of that, that's the route I would go. Connect HubSpot to ActiveCampaign and then use ActiveCampaign as your primary sync tool, or you can do the reverse. Just depends on where your emails are coming from. But I think I heard you say in that email or in that question that your emails are going to be coming from ActiveCampaign. And with that being the case, you're going to want to take HubSpot sales, put them into ActiveCampaign, tag them as an attendee, and then that tag will trigger the sync with Obvio, and we will return the login URL to ActiveCampaign so you can then embed it or merge it into your emails.
Yeah, okay, thanks a lot for that. So it was the first part of my question. And the second one, so I already tried some stuff to be here with my knowledge of Obvio. And first, congrats. I use a lot of tools, and I was surprised by the simplicity of it. At first, when I bought Obvio, it was like a shade stuff. We couldn't get the pricing page or whatever. And inside, it's so easy. I wanted my team to be able to do it. And now I think you did it. So it's like the easiest tool I ever seen. So congrats.
Awesome. Thank you, Frank.
And so yeah, the second one. So I built already some Zap with a webhook to get the form responses. So I think like Zapier, ActiveCampaign, and HubSpot. So now I will desync HubSpot. It's okay because ActiveCampaign is my main CRM emails, and we use HubSpot for sales, but not on the way you are talking about, but on the way to for my sales team to get the call and to sell. So actually the sales of the VIP tickets are coming from WooCommerce to ActiveCampaign. So this is good for me. So ActiveCampaign gets the tag, and then I can send it back to Obvio.
Yep.
So now my question is, excuse me, yeah.
Yeah, no. So, and the second part of that question, which is how can you automatically pull the attendance data into ActiveCampaign? And the answer to that is that currently cannot be automated. So you're at the end of the day or at the end of an event, you're going to have to download your attendees from the area page and import that information from the CSV that you get. There's no way to automate that currently. We're in the midst of so it's a long time coming, but we're in the midst of building out our statistics engine. And initially, it's going to make more things visible within Obvio, but not yet. We haven't yet figured out how to automate some of the information that you're talking about. And we want to, right? I want to be able to get that information into third-party services. But as a starting point, what you're going to be able to do is look up who was present during specific times and manually export that stuff. Anyway, we're working on some ways to make that a little bit more seamless for people who are using third-party integrations. But as a starting point, it is going to be manual.
So what will be in the columns? So total times, attendees on that day. What do I get?
Yeah. So right now, the only pieces of information that you get when you do export attendees from the area or from the room level, right? So if you go to an areas page up at the top, it says export attendees. And then if you go into rooms, it says the same thing, export attendees. And when you do the export from either of those two spots, what you're going to get is 2 extra columns inside of the attendee export. Column 1 is number of connections. So how many times did they join Zoom? And then the second column that you're going to get is total time in Zoom. So if somebody joined Zoom over 3 days, 10 times, and they were in Zoom for a total of 6 hours and 42 minutes, that's what you'll see. You won't see the individual joins, like they joined this time for, for in this, like this is their join, this is their leave for this amount of time. You don't see the individual connections, you just see the total. So that's the information you see currently. We're also working on a secondary export tool or a secondary export that will give you the individual joins. So what you'll be able to see in that, what will wind up happening is somebody who joins 10 times on those new exports will actually have 10 lines, right? With each line being the connection that they had when they joined, when they left, total duration in Zoom. That's coming as well. So those are the things that we're working on currently.
Do you have an ETA for that?
Yeah, last summer.
Okay.
So what I'll say to you, Frank, is we are currently our primary focus on the development side in the month of May and June is on 2 features that we're trying to bring to everybody. One is marketplace, the ability to sell tickets. We're in the middle of a complete rebuild of our marketplace system. And I was talking to the developer who's been working, the primary developer who's been working on the back end of that, and it's close. I've seen a working demo of it. So we're hoping that in the next 3 weeks it'll be ready for at least us to put into the beta. But there's also a chance that it may be a little bit more. The other thing that we're focused on over the course of May and June has been communication, so broadcasts. Email broadcasts have gotten a major upgrade in the last few weeks, which is the ability to filter your broadcasts. So you used to be able to send email broadcasts to checked in and not checked in attendees. You can now really drill down your email broadcast to be VIP, like to be based on filters, the same way you can filter your attendee list. So if you want to send an email to your VIP attendees who have not yet checked in, you can do that, whereas previously you couldn't. Now you can. The other thing that we are working on right now that I was told, I'm hoping it'll be done this week, but I was hoping it was going to be done last week. So admittedly, I'm not the developer, so I just get to push our developers and ask for unreasonable things for them to do. And sometimes they manage to do it, and sometimes I have to wait longer, James. So that would be the SMS tool, the ability to send text messages to your attendees. So that's, like I said, I'm hoping that we're going to be testing that this week. And once we start testing it on the staging systems, then we're usually not far from you guys seeing it. So that's coming as well. So those are the things that we've been hard at work on. And then the moment that those two things are done, we then transition, the whole team is going to start working on statistics. So as well as, well, there's another thing that we're working on that is kind of, we'll just call it a top secret project. But those are the things that we're kind of, I'm hoping is going to be, I'm hopeful that that's going to be July, August. And by the time the end of August comes around, all of the things that we want to do from a statistics perspective are in place. The ability to easily filter when attendees were online and see that inside of the user interface, the ability to tag specific attendees inside of the user interface. If you're at the enterprise level, the ability to fire webhooks based on some of those searches. And then the ability to export those attendees that you filter based on attendance, the ability to send a broadcast to those attendees based on attendance, right? Like all sorts of little things like that are coming. At the same time, we're also working on statistics at the form level. So inside of forms, to be able to see graphs of answers based on like multiple choice and radio button questions. Currently, you have to export that information and pull it into a third-party tool like Google Sheets or Excel or something like that to get graphs of data that you ask for your attendees through polling or through the form system. And we've started the design work on the ability to see that inside of the user interface. At least those questions that are multiple choice, radio select buttons, things like that. So those are the stats things that we're working on, and our goal is for them to be done by the end of the summer.
That's exciting. And so just to go back to my question about exporting Zoom attendees, So if I want to get that day by day, I need to export each day, correct?
Yeah, and then you're also going to have to do you are going to have to do the aggregation math, right? Because when you export day one, it'll give you everything so far. When you export day two, it'll include day one. So you're going to have to, it's not hard to do, right? But you are going to have to do that math internally.
Okay, cool. And so I think the last one about Active Campaign. So it's okay about custom field. So like attendee created, checked in, waiver signed. But the first one, import tag. What does it mean exactly? Because if here I put my tag, I have two tags, so the free ticket and the VIP tickets. But here I can see only one possibility to add the tag. So how does it work?
Correct.
Please?
So correct. So Obvio works with what we call an umbrella tag. So it's one tag for all your attendees. So you're going to want to have your free ticket tag and your VIP tag. But then apply a tag that is all attendees to both of those groups. And that's the import attendee tag. And when an attendee is given that tag, they will be in Active Campaign. They will be imported into Obvio. And when they're imported into Obvio, our tags field, the Obvio tags field, will include all of the tags that are in the contacts record inside of Active Campaign. Right. Okay. So you can automatically, and that's true of, incidentally, for those of you using MailChimp, for those of you using Infusionsoft or Keep, it's true for those two integrations as well. Anybody that imports from both of those integrations, we also import the tags associated with those people. So
yeah, so I already have my both tags, so the tags for any attendees, I mean subscribers. So I put that in the import tag label field, and then from that moment you get every tags my contact has from Active Campaign, and then through another button configuration, I can filter by if they have this tag, then it's a VIP.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Sounds pretty good. And I already created some group labels, but what is the group in the integration Active Campaign? Is that the same, or what does it mean?
So groups are generally speaking custom fields in Active Campaign. So if you want to import city or state or country or other stuff that exists inside of Active Campaign, though that would be imported as a group inside of Obvio.
Okay, so it's in the way from Active Campaign to Obvio. See, if I have a custom field I want to import in Obvio to filter them or to show them some stuff, it's on that way. Okay, perfect. Okay.
Yep.
So
And
I
on the
return
service
my
integration-
what I said. Big congrats, because it's amazing how you think about it.
Yeah, there's a lot there, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
So thanks so much. So I'm happy to finish my configuration and to enjoy next week this. Thanks.
Awesome. You're welcome.
So I would just say, Frank, that in the meantime, while we're still getting those attendee reports worked out, there is a way for us to access some prototypes of those reports in the back end. And so if you were to email help@obv.io, then we could manually go and generate those reports for you and send it back. And it'd be interesting to get your feedback on whether that type of data is the type of thing you're looking for. So we're coming up with terminology on it, but I think of it as in terms of a log is what I call it, is the one with join and leave. It's kind of just a big log of everyone that came in and out. And then the other one is kind of combined minutes, how long. And so we've also even kind of made an option, and I don't know how we'll end up at the end, but we're just testing some different reports. And so one is combined minutes per day or combined minutes per event. And so sometimes people did a 5-day event, all they care about is what was the total amount of minutes that they were on for the event. And sometimes they want to know how per day how many minutes they were connected. And so that's what we're playing with. The other thing I just mentioned too is something that Blue and Barry do on TVE and lots of the events, is particularly when it's enrollment based and that you're signing people up and you really want to know who was where when, is having information booths, like the information as a separate Zoom area, and in breaks and things like that, where people will come and ask other questions about whatever it is that you're wanting to sign them up to. The advantage with that is not only that they're getting to answer their questions, because you have a couple of staff in there helping them, and you might even use breakout rooms to be able to do one-on-one. I'm sure you're familiar with doing all of that type of stuff. I'm just raising your awareness to think about the advantage of that, is that then when you do an export of that booth, now you've got a list of people that were very interested because they came and asked a question. Or they had a question. So now you've got a list of leads of the people that came to that booth. So that can be very helpful too.
Yes, that's amazing. So for the first one, that's crazy. I can also maybe give you some feedback, because why I asked for Zoom attendees, it's because I already integrated with my HubSpot and I have a workflow. And every time people stay more than X minutes, then it sends notifications to my sales team to call them now. So that's why. And I think I already did maybe 10 or 12 challenges since 2017. And so, yes, every time we do that, we increase the sales like by 50%. So it's something, it works very well. So thanks for that, if I can send an email. And for the second part, so yes, I do some breakout rooms or whatever, but I didn't get how to get this information from booth. I didn't get that part.
Okay. Yeah. So on the Zoom area page, there's an export attendees for the Zoom area page, and that will give you who joined that area. And then if you have lots of multiple rooms underneath that area, then you can do an individual report for each one of those rooms as well. So
yeah, okay, perfect. So it was in my brains to make some Zoom and also maybe help Zoom with my closer team. So maybe I can do that to
yes,
increase the qualification and then export
yes.
them and send back to HubSpot. Okay, perfect.
Mhm.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome. Welcome back to Paris.
Yeah. Actually, I'm in Brazil, but yeah.
Are you? But are you using a VPN?
Yeah.
You tricked me.
Yeah,
It
I don't
says
live in France. I don't live in France anymore. Yeah.
I know. Last time it said you were in Brazil, but
Yeah.
but
We'll
now
steal them.
but now you're tricking Zoom by it thinks that you're in Paris. So there you
Yeah,
go.
that's it.
Well done, you tricky man. So everyone that's listening, we've got a good number of people here. We dived right into the deep end on our first question. Don't be kind of scared off by that. Some of that was going over my head, and so I'm sure for you it might have been like, I don't understand all this extra stuff with ActiveCampaign and HubSpot and all these extra things. Remember that you don't have to have these third-party tools to be able to run your events. You can do it all within Obvio, but of course, there's lots of systems that people have in place for managing their events and customers and things, and so we do offer integrations into third-party tools. So, saying all of that, please ask questions, wherever you're at. Entry-level questions are very much welcomed. And everyone always learns. There's always something that you learn from someone's question, and so it's great to have everyone here doing that. So remember, the question button is on the dashboard, and that way it goes into our little question system and make sure that we can track it all. Great. All right. What's next, Heather?
April wants to know if we will please do a walkthrough on using Obvio as the reg page.
Blue's thinking.
No.
Because
So let's do this. Heather, can you please give April the most recent record, see if we can track down the most recent recording that we did of that. April, there's a real reason why I'm saying no, not just to be cheeky. The registration page system inside of Obvio is getting a major overhaul, and within a couple of weeks, everything that I share with you is going to be invalidated. So I don't want to do a big demo of something that I've already done, that we have in a recording, only to have 41 people see it and then have to say to all 41 people, oh, by the way, ignore everything I showed you 2 weeks ago, because now this is how it works. So within the next couple of weeks, the moment the new marketplace system is released, we'll do a big demo of exactly how it works, as well as how to integrate communications with some automation, some level of automation around confirmation emails and so on and so forth. So we'll do all of that within the next couple of weeks once the upgrade to marketplace is released.
Makes sense. Thank you. And I'm happy to just take the just do the recording. If that's
Awesome.
That's fine. I'll take that. Thank you.
Sweet. Yeah, thank you.
all right. Next
All right.
question.
I'm going to hunt that down, just so you know. I just don't have it at the tip of my fingers at the moment. The next question is from Bez. He just wants to know what new updates are there for Obvio.
Do we have, like, from when are we talking about? What I would say to you is there are regularly new updates to Obvio. I would say to you that the most recent things that we've done inside the platform of major significance are the addition of the lefty template, which gives everybody a new template to work with. Kind of going down the list of things that are new, the sign up feature to allow people to sign up for free events from the login page is a relatively new feature within the last 4 or 5 months, something along those lines. The filtering of communication of the communication engine is a new feature from within the last couple of weeks, but of course only available to people who have requested access to the communication beta, which everybody can. All you need to do is email help@obv.io and say, hey, can I get access to the communication beta? And we'll turn that on for you. Then from there, probably the biggest update that we've done to Obvio revolves actually not around anything that we have done to the platform, but around the onboarding workshop that everybody has access to. So those eight calls are pretty significant. Each call is about 2 hours long, and it really is a deep dive on the entire platform. I think the only thing that there's a couple of features that we didn't cover, which revolve around image entries and PDF downloads of forms. But outside of that, all of that is, outside of that, everything is defined in those calls, which is pretty awesome. So there's a link to that on the dashboard that got you into this call. So I would say that's probably the biggest thing. From an integration perspective, we've added Active Campaign within the last month. And about a month to a month and a half prior to that, we added HubSpot. So this year we've added 2 major integration service providers or third parties into the platform. And then probably the biggest change to Obvio in the last 6 months revolves around how we bill for events, right? Up to November of last year, we had a credit-based system that was super complicated that I'm not even going to say what it was. And we moved in October to have a system where everybody can have events that are up to 500 attendees in capacity from a registration perspective. In April, we made another major change to that favors you, which is now the way we count used to be based on registered attendees. It's now based on active attendees. So what active attendees means is, in order for a registered attendee to count towards your attendee count, towards that 500 person minimum or maximum, they have to take an action within Obvio. They have to create a password. They have to log into the dashboard, sign the waiver, be checked in. One of those things, once they start interacting with the dashboard, we consider them an active attendee, and that's when they count. What that's been really, really beneficial for are people who use Obvio for free events, because we all know that free events tend to have about a 20 to 30% show up rate is considered pretty good. So when you register 500 attendees, only 100 or so, 100 to 150 will actually show up. Well, now you can register probably closer to 2,000 attendees, because if you have 2,000 attendees, you're still going to have only 400 to 500 people actually show up in all likelihood. And now you don't have to pay extra for those extra attendees who are registered, unless you get over 500 active participants. So that's from a billing perspective, we've made some major changes for you guys. From a billing perspective, we're also about to make another major change, which is currently Marketplace comes with a 3% platform fee. So you have to pay your Stripe fees. And Obvio currently charges 3% for the use of Marketplace. The new update that we're releasing to Marketplace, as well as the update to SMS functionality, is going to eliminate the fee for Marketplace usage. So the 3% fee will go away entirely. It's going to be 0%. And SMS functionality, which used to be limited, like the way it's currently built, because it currently does exist inside of Obvio, it was limited to people to attendees who purchased a ticket through Marketplace, right? Because that's what the 3% was covering. It was a big part of what it was covering was text messaging. So, but what we realized is so many more of our users would want this particular feature. So we've moved SMS out of being tied to marketplace sales, and you're going to be able to import phone numbers through either CSV import or any one of the third-party integrations. You're going to be able to import phone numbers, and SMS is what we call pay per use. So when you send a broadcast, a text message broadcast, there are fees associated with it. It's not a lot. I can tell you at a high level what it is. There's a $1 charge for an SMS broadcast, and then a 10 cents per international phone number, meaning outside of North America, and 2 cents for any phone numbers in the United States or Canada. So those are essentially what the costs are going to be for SMS, and anybody can use it, which is why it's pay per use. Or you can not use it, and then you don't have any costs associated with it, and you can still use Marketplace, and it's free. So a lot of what we've changed, Bez, in the last 6 months or so has really been focused on how do we get our users to use the platform, right? How do we get them to, because prior when we were charging for attendees, right, that attendee credit system, people were hesitant to use their Obvio account for free events because they didn't want to use up their credits. They wanted to use their credits for paid events. So now that the credit system is gone and you can have unlimited events for up to 500 people, the hope is, and the driver is, that you use your Obvio account for more than just your paid events, but you also use it for your challenges or a live launch or even a webinar, if that makes sense for you, right? So we're trying to, because we have found incredible results when we use it internally here at Sage for all of those things. And we started thinking, why are we penalizing our paying clients with this credit system, right? We started talking about this last year sometime. So anyway, those are the major changes. And then there's some invisible changes if you want to know about them, but they really don't mean anything to you. Obvio is actually sitting on top of a brand new infrastructure that was released in January, February, that we had been working on for quite some time. There's no functional change from your perspective, but there's some pretty big changes from a scalability perspective on our end, which essentially allows the system to scale a lot faster and a lot more seamlessly for really large events. But that doesn't really affect most people. But it's basically we rebuilt the car. We took the engine out, threw it away, and started from scratch. And then we had to move the entire platform onto this new engine without anybody noticing it. So there's a lot of work that went on behind the scenes that you guys don't have any concept of, or any direct, it doesn't have a direct impact on you one way or the other. But it's in a lot of ways, it's what allowed us to do some of the changes that we're doing from a billing perspective, because it's made the platform more economical for us to run, right? So it's part of how we've been able to do all those things. So anyway, there you go.
Can I ask something else?
My God, really?
You mentioned, I don't know, I was on another call maybe a few weeks back, that the use case that's a business had used it for sales calls or something like that. Could you, because I'm getting ideas of ways I could use this, and that seemed unique. Could you share how they used it a little bit with us?
That was actually the person that did that was on this call a few minutes ago, was Jeff Veely. So there we go. He is still on this call. So Jeff set up I believe, set up a dashboard for his, actually, Jeff, do you want to just share what you did in, let's say, 60 seconds or less?
Yeah, so I have a pre-event kind of call, event planning call with my clients, and then a post-event call. And so both of those can be used for service and for sales. I use the sign up page because typically when my client is coming, I have a primary contact, but they're inviting their team. I don't know the name of their team members. And so I use the sign up page. That way, when they come, they can sign up for the event. That way, when they show up in Zoom, they've got their first name, their last name, and then all of the prep materials, follow-up resources, frequently asked questions. Those are all links from the dashboard. So if they have a question, not only can they ask me live, but they can go back to the dashboard and reference those at any moment. And we've just had amazing feedback from clients of how helpful that's been. And the fact that it's branded. They're, expecting plain old Zoom, and they're impressed that we went the extra mile.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks, Jeff. And Bez, that's one of those things that because you can now do, not only can you do unlimited events, but you can do events for unlimited duration, right? So that's something where Jeff can set up one event that starts today and ends, 3 years from now. It doesn't matter. And he can go in, and anytime he has one of those client calls, he just gives out his URL. And he goes in, opens the area, joins Zoom, and there you go. So that's, it may be too much for some people, but I think it's pretty cool. And it's definitely one of the unique use cases that the new billing system makes possible, right? Like before November, Jeff never would have done that, because one attendee would have cost him like 97 credits over the course of the year. And, he would have had like 12 attendees, and then his entire year would have been shot. Right. So that's what the new billing mechanism allows for, some of these unique use cases, because there's no penalty to doing stuff like that. So love that. All right, let's go to our next question, Heather.
All
Thanks.
right. So April wants to know what the projection for integrating ClickFunnels into Obvio is. She's thinking of switching.
Yeah, that's a great question. So ClickFunnels is in an interesting position right now because they have two platforms, right? And they have what they were calling ClickFunnels Classic, and then they have ClickFunnels 2.0. And they're two completely different mechanisms, like two completely different programs. So we're hesitant right now to put a lot of effort into building an integration with ClickFunnels 1.0, like ClickFunnels Classic. The version that we would want to build for is ClickFunnels 2.0, because it's where ClickFunnels is heading. But as it stands right now, they don't have a very open API structure. So I've had some preliminary conversations with them, because clearly we know them fairly well. They happen to be clients of Sage. And then Barry and I also are in Russell's highest level mastermind group. So I see Todd, who's their lead developer, or the platform architect, essentially, regularly. I know a lot of the folks at that company. And the moment they have an open API and something that we can tie into, then we'll probably start building for 2.0. But for now, we're not there yet. I will tell you something that we have. No, you know what? I'm going to keep this one. I was about to tell you about the secret thing that we're working on, but I'm going to wait until the secret thing is actually done. I'm going to try and be not myself. I'm hoping for something pretty awesome in the next few weeks. So we'll see how it goes. You may hear something interesting shortly. How's that for vague and not useful at all?
Yeah, just keep talking and not actually say anything at all.
Yeah, listen, I can fill another hour and a half if you want. Yeah. And I'll tell you, April, ClickFunnels 2.0 is interesting because they don't even have Zapier capabilities built into 2.0 just yet. So you have to use their webhook system in order to connect 2.0 to Zapier and then get Zapier talking to Obvio. I've done it. It works perfectly fine, but it's a little geeky right now. But 2.0 is definitely where they're headed, right? And it's pretty cool. All right, Heather, next.
Next, Barry wants to know if you can please explain Obvio sizing and pricing.
So Obvio has three levels. You're welcome, April. Obvio has 3 levels of service. We have what we call Obvio Essentials, which on some pages is just called Obvio, and I think it may be called Obvio Basic somewhere. But let's just call it Obvio Essentials. It's $97 a month or $997 a year. It allows for unlimited events of unlimited duration for up to 50 attendees. It also allows you to have 1 active Zoom meeting or Zoom room at any given time, only 1. Next level up, there's a couple of other things, but they're not in place yet, like Obvio Essentials. One of the things that it will have at some point soon is some Obvio branding, right? So a little tag at the bottom of the page that says powered by Obvio. Something along those lines that will be visible on Obvio Essentials. Obvio Pro goes up from 50 to 500 attendees, so you can do unlimited events for up to 500 instead of 50, and it gives you 5 active Zoom rooms instead of just 1. Those are the major differences between the two levels of service. One is Obvio Pro is $197 a month or $1997 a year. It also eliminates the Obvio branding, so that little tag that doesn't exist currently on Obvio Basic, but will at some point, or Obvio Essentials. Then the next thing, or the next level up, is Obvio Enterprise, and it's $497 a month or $4997 a year. And Obvio Enterprise is good for up to 1,000 attendees, as opposed to 500. And you can have up to 25 active Zoom rooms at any one time. So those are essentially the 3 levels of service. There's one other difference. So each level of service, there are 2 purchases that you can make to upgrade your account. One is you can buy blocks of attendees, like you can increase your event by up to 250 people. And the other thing is you can add additional Zoom rooms to your account for 30-day periods. At the Obvio Essentials level, those upgrades cost $200. At the Obvio Pro level, they cost $100. And at the Obvio Enterprise level, they cost $50. So most of you are on Obvio Pro. If you signed up for the free trial, the 30-day trial is an Obvio Pro free trial. That's the level that you get on the free trial. So that is, those are the major things. There are a couple of other things. Muddy pointed out that Obvio Essentials only allows for 1 organization. Obvio Pro allows for 3. Obvio Enterprise allows for unlimited. So that is another thing. And then we do have a couple of features that are limited to enterprise only clients, but they generally speaking are things that only high-end clients are actually using, that I won't even bother going into. But we have, well, actually I'm about to. We have a webhook system that allows for custom integrations to be built. And that system is accessible at the Obvio Enterprise level. Some of our more robust studios want access to a product called Zoom ISO. And in order to get into that product, you need the enterprise level service. So, that doesn't give you Zoom ISO because that's a different product entirely. But anyway, so that's something else that's accessible. And then there's a few other things that Obvio Enterprise gives you that the others don't, but they're almost none of them are things that the majority of you will miss.
Thanks.
Really...
Yeah, go ahead. And then I have a couple of clarifying questions.
Go ahead.
Yeah, very helpful. I was on the TV and the encores. This helps. So on the Zoom rooms, if I get this, if we had 3 rooms, what I understand would be the main stage, the help desk, simultaneously, and the come talk to a person about our program. Let's say we're all simultaneous. That's 3 rooms. Is that the way I understand it?
That is how you understand it, and that's correct.
Okay, so if the okay, good, I got that. When you say organization in Obvio language, what does that mean?
So Obvio allows it has a hierarchy inside the system. So when you log in, you have your Obvio account. To your Obvio account, you own organizations within the account, and organizations can have events. So it is generally speaking that organization feature is generally speaking for people like myself or Muddy or Dorita, or people who are or Jeff, people who are producing events for others, to keep those events separate, right? So I want to make sure that my client events for client A don't see all of the details for client B. So Obvio is structured into different organizations, and that's what it means.
That makes sense, because I do a lot of that kind of work on Zooms. That might work for Obvio. A couple of questions that I want to weave in here. One of them is, I know you had said on the TV and the Encore, there were certain things, I don't know how to explain this. There's certain things that are like built into Obvio. So one of the things that I noticed the other day was I could not, as a participant, I could not save the chat. I know on the back end of Zoom, generic Zoom or Pro Zoom or whatever, there's a bunch of settings. Is all that stuff standard or changeable, or what's the level per meeting, per client, per whatever?
Yeah, that stuff is not changeable per meeting, per event, per stuff. When you use Obvio, you're using the Obvio enterprise account essentially, and we have set those accounts based on what we would consider best practices. So things like 100 breakouts are turned on by default. The ability to send HD is turned on by default. The inability for attendees to rename themselves by default is turned off. The ability to download chat is turned off. The recording of your events is turned on by default. You can turn it off once you go into Zoom, but it's turned on by default. All of the features that people who are producing events generally want are turned on by default. We have had some internal discussions around making some of those settings that are changeable, accessible to the user. But for now, they're not. But we have had some discussions around making some of these things a little bit more accessible.
Well, I see the pros and cons, because in generic Zoom, there's like not a zillion, but a whole bunch. It can be overwhelming. The one that comes to mind is chat. Sometimes I don't want the chat to happen, depending who the client is. Sometimes you do, particularly if it's a learning thing, they want to be able to download it. Okay. And then I have one other question.
So here's the thing. Your attendees can't download chat. However, you can download the chat post-event. It is recorded inside of the, and it's accessible inside of the Obvio interface. And at the end of the day, you can send out an email to all your attendees and say, by the way, for those of you who were asking for the chat, here is a copy of it. And you can give them the chat file. So
that's a good thing, because it's additional value, and I'm controlling or in command of what I give them or whatnot, because maybe there's stuff in there that was a bunch of noise that I don't want to give them. I just want to give them content or something. Yeah.
And that's, again, most of our clients, actually almost all of our clients really don't want people to just be able to download the chat willy-nilly.
Yeah.
So that's why it's turned on.
And I think the last question for now, and I'm really happy to be
Sorry,
here.
Barry, can I just jump in for a second, just about chat specifically? So co-hosts and hosts can download the chat within the app, and so even before the meeting is finished, you could access that chat if you needed to download it. The second thing, to your point as well, is that you're saying about being able to turn off chat, and that's another in-meeting setting. So within the security settings within Zoom, under that security button, you can disable chat, allow all participants to, and you can turn off chat. So that's something that you can then do at different points within your event. That is not something that has to be a setting that you set before. So there are some settings that are in meeting settings only, and that can be accessed there. And that's an example of that. We would prefer to give the option to be able to turn it off within the meeting, so that you can make changes during the meeting, rather than it being a hard and fast off or on before you start the meeting. So, and that's
really
constantly changing. They've added extra things in that too now.
Yeah, that's really helpful, because I've had clients that, depending what the program is, sometimes they want to turn it on for certain things and off for others.
That's right. Yeah.
I have two questions, and I'll move on. This is super helpful. I said something speaking in the chat earlier. I had asked a question because somebody asked a question of what are the new things that happen. Does Obvio on the dashboard have like a version number, so when updates happen, you can go back and see what it is?
No.
Okay. That answers that. And then I think the last one you mentioned, Blue, and I was not aware of this, that in the Obvio, you're getting a higher, I got the part of the HD, but you're giving a higher level, you're getting the highest level from Zoom of service or something like that. And I wanted to know what that really meant, because I've never heard of this before. Thank you.
It basically just means that we're an enterprise user, and generally speaking, there is a lot of cloak and dagger around how Zoom operates in the background. But our experience has definitely been that enterprise users tend to get a slightly higher level of service, and sometimes a higher level of server access, stuff that you don't really know is happening, but is happening in the background. So because we have so many licenses, and because of how much we spend with Zoom on a monthly basis, the type of service that our accounts have access to is different than just like a business or a pro user.
I get it. Okay, that's a really big selling point. I agree.
Yeah, I've just got a real world example of that, and that was that in a couple of weeks ago, I had someone doing a test of a Zoom call, and so they used a free account, and they were doing a free account, and they were like, it seems a little bit slow. Something's not quite working with Zoom. Something's not quite right. And so then we tested with the Obvio account, and it was rock solid. And the difference was that on the enterprise account, my understanding is that we have access to all of the data centers for Zoom and where they have all their reflectors and the way that works around the world. And on the free accounts, it's not. It was all going through one data center in the States. And so as soon as we did that, I'm in Australia, and so we were accessing a data center in Sydney, and the event was in Sydney, and it just all just worked perfectly. On that free account, it was going through the States, and there was a lot more latent. And so that's a simple example. But the other thing is too, that because we're on enterprise, and that we have asked for specific features to be turned on. One of those is HD, full HD, so 1080p video. The standard still within Zoom is 360p to be SD, and then it can go to 720p, but we have 1080p enabled on ours. The other big thing is full unlimited cloud recording, and so even on some of the pro accounts, you could have cloud recording, but only have, I can't even remember how much it is, 100 gig, or I can't remember, 10 gig or something like that. It was limited anyway as to how much recording you could have. So of course on our account, we want it to be unlimited. But for you, it means unlimited, right? So that's particularly helpful to know that you can run all of your events, record all of them, at least to have that backup in the cloud is particularly helpful. So there's a few of those extra features that there used to be 100 breakout rooms also, but I believe they're kind of rolling that out across the board now for 100 breakouts. But we had that early.
I think it's still an option you got to turn on. And so I think what you guys are saying is that you're taking on a high level, the benefit is you're taking the I don't know if it's all, but most of all, the pain away from the user or the customer who's going to do this to figure out what do I got to do in Zoom, this, that, and everything else, and know all those little gotchas. And you're like taking them away and just saying, here's what you need. Here's everything. Don't worry about it. We got it. That's what comes across to me. So thank you so much for that. Appreciate it. Nice to meet you, Grant. Thank you, both.
too.
Thanks, Barry. All right.
All right.
Heather,
Um,
So Kevin's got his hand up. Was that in relation to something there, Kevin?
May I go ahead?
Sure.
Sure, thank you. So just a quick question. I noticed today, I was in a previous call with an Obvio user before I jumped into this, and we had problems. I had problems for the last couple of days trying to register, and I didn't realize that they were using Obvio until I used an alternate email, and it showed me how I was getting to their Zoom call. But there was a conflict. It wouldn't allow me to register for their event for this meeting, and I had to use a personal email that I don't like giving out. And so I was curious, is it because I'm already a part of this community that maybe my email is somehow attached to Obvio and his account is totally different or something? I don't know.
Yeah, Kevin, that sounds like another problem entirely because those two things aren't connected. And without having that particular client on to see what their dashboard looks like and the link that they gave you,
Mhm.
I don't know that I can speak to it.
No problem.
I'd have to look into that. But generally speaking, that shouldn't happen if they have set up their stuff right. And there are plenty of ways for our users to set things up incorrectly. We had a client yesterday who reached out to us and they couldn't figure out why attendees weren't getting into Zoom. And it's because the button wasn't pointed towards the area.
Makes sense.
You know, and it just, with everything is slightly different. And sorry, Amy, and there's always something that, you know, could potentially be wrong. And we have made all of the mistakes, like every single mistake that an Obvio user has made, I promise you, we have made ourselves. And we have, because we use the platform, right? Sage uses the platform more than anybody else. So we try to, every time we see consistency in mistakes, we are constantly looking for ways to improve the platform. So I'll give you a really quick example and then we'll move to our next question. You know, we've, from the beginning, you know, one of the things that has been a little bit of a pet peeve of mine is if you click out of the sidebar, like the config panel that pops out, if you click out of it without clicking save, then you lose the save, the changes that you made. So, you know, this year, earlier this year, we talked to our team and said, is there a way that we could fix this? And over the course of the last, you know, month or so, actually, this has actually come into the platform. So now if you open up the configuration panel for a button or a blog post or anything really, and you forget and you make changes and you click out of it either accidentally or on purpose without clicking save, you'll get a little disclaimer that says, a little, you know, pop-up reminder that says, hey, you're about to lose the changes. Do you want to save them or discard your changes? Now that seems like a little thing, right? But it's actually a really big thing to code. So, or at least that's what they tell me, given that I don't actually code anything. So, you know, these are little things that when we see stuff in our day-to-day use, and I'm not just talking about supporting our clients, but when we actually use the product day to day, we're always looking for ways to tweak and improve. And especially when we see like consistently making the same mistake, we try to remove that pain point from the platform to make it better for everybody. So anyway, hopefully that helps. All right, Heather James, who's next?
Yes. Let's see if Dorita is still on. She is. So she had a question. We're working with a client and want to host a pre-event. Can I use the date for the first event and change the date for the second day event? Or should I do a pre-event on one of the 2 days before the actual event?
Dorita, can you ask that question again?
Yeah, that was poorly written. Sorry. We wanted to do like some kind of a lounge cocktail event so that they could get in and see the system and try it. This is our way of sort of tech checking it. But we were thinking about maybe a week before or 2 weeks before the event. I don't want to do it right up on the event date because we're trying to not do a check-in, but to get people familiar with the platform. So we wanted them to already see the dashboard and do all of that. Does it open? To me, it feels like it opens the event, which is too far in advance.
Yeah, I mean, I will say to you, technically, you can do that without any problems and just make the event rather than, 3 days long, make it 14 days long, right? So it covers your preview event, that cocktail hour, and so that your attendees get a glimpse of what the dashboard's going to look like, and then have the event end after the actual event ends. If you want in between that time frame, right? Like if you don't want people to have access to the dashboard in between that time frame, you could configure the offline page to say something along the lines of, the event dashboard will be available on Friday, July 6th at 3 p.m. Looking forward to seeing you there. And then make the event itself offline and save it. So you don't actually change the dates. You leave the dates as just a long range, but in between events, you just offline the event, or in between the dates, you can offline the event so your attendees see the offline page rather than all the dashboardy stuff. And then when you get closer to the event, you just online the event and you're good to go. So I would just make one event just for ease. I wouldn't make two, but it technically doesn't really matter. But I would do just one event instead of two.
Can the dashboard stay open that long, although the Zooms will be offline?
Yep.
If we want them to go and pick up materials and get prepared?
Yeah, the dashboard can, technically, unless you turn off the dashboards remain active in perpetuity. So
Okay.
you can have a dashboard active for the entire time. You could even post blog updates to the dashboard in between the event without any problems. We have a lot of clients actually who use that feature and post content in between, like before the event, and 7 days before the event, post something, 5 days before the event, post something, because that blog system is just that. You can use it for updates like that. So
it's
Thank
Dorita, I would say that your apprehension about it is a legacy of the credit system, right? And so because you've been around so long, we have to reset your thinking on how the start and end dates work.
I know. I'm
now,
like,
right?
what day is it open, close, open, close? Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're like,
Gotcha.
and am I
Thank
going to
you.
lose? Am I going to lose a bunch of money in credits if I run it too long or whatever, right? So think about that. It has changed. So.
yeah, and Robin and everybody else, the offline page doesn't have a tremendous amount of customization to it. It is basically your login page, but with some slightly different variants. So there you go. Okay, Heather, next up, let's go.
So Bez just joined Leap. His account moved from one email to another. Are all the things that we turned on still active in his new profile?
No. So
Well,
you're going to want to reach out to us, Bez, and say, hey, and we're going to shut off the email account associated. Actually, what we'll probably do is delete the account associated with your Leap profile. We're going to do a whole bunch of stuff, but just send us an email and say, hey, this is my old account, my paid account. Here's my Leap account. Can you combine them under a Leap account? And we're going to have to jump through some hoops to make that happen, but we'll figure it out for you.
As of 4 seconds ago, Bez, the same features have now been enabled on your new account.
Yeah, but we're about to delete that account because all of his stuff is in the old account.
I understand.
So don't build anything in the new account, Bez, because we're going to delete that. Okay.
Oh, wait, don't do anything in the new account?
Correct. Just use the old account for now.
My personal email one.
Yeah. Well, actually, let me, this is not a conversation that should happen in front of 41 people.
Okay, that's fine. I'll take it offline.
Yeah, do you
with an
mind
email.
just reach out to support, because I have Grant or I will ask you a couple of questions really around which account do you want to use? Because unless you just want to lose all of the information in one of those two accounts, but you probably don't, and you probably don't need two accounts. So let's consolidate under one and make sure it has the LEAP plan associated with it.
There's really nothing in the old account because it's when, the free trial, and I was just, testing some stuff. So I didn't really set much up. It's not a big deal if you deleted it.
Okay. And
Yeah.
did you let it lapse, or is it currently paid?
No, I went from the the birthday special,
Yeah.
and then right into Leap.
Okay.
So I'm now Leap with
With the new account.
Yeah.
Just email both accounts to us. Let us take a quick look and make sure that you're not being charged in a way that you're not supposed to be.
Oh, you're not. I caught that. There was something that happened, like it was a day lapse, and I caught it, and they took care of it. So
Okay. Well, as long as that's the case, then don't worry about it and don't use the old
Yeah,
account.
I think you're fine. I'm just double checking now, but I think you're all good.
yeah, I should be. Okay, thank you.
Cool. All right.
So Muddy's question is, how's the new shopping cart building coming along? The current cart builder kept reverting back to a blank page when we were working on Robin's past event.
Yep. It's coming along well.
Thanks for asking.
I can't give you much more than that, Muddy. We're hoping for it to be done in the next 3 weeks. That's the reality. We're hoping for it to be done by the end of June.
All right. Rick asked, can I add Obvio's marketplace URL to redirect using the button click here clients to our Obvio's registration page? I have ClickFunnels 2.0 homepage, and clients may want to go to our homepage looking to sign in instead of our Obvio page.
Yes. I don't have anything more. But I think what he's asking is, can I link an external site to my Obvio registration page? Yes, you can. Or can I link an external site to my Obvio login page? Yes, you can.
All right. Amy said, have I reached the total number of broadcasts? I only send one per meeting and duplicate it twice a month for this reoccurring event, but I can no longer see the duplicate broadcasts in the list. I've been using ActiveCampaign to make sure people are getting notified because I can't seem to see the broadcasts anymore.
The short answer is no, you haven't hit a limit. The slightly longer answer is you may have discovered a bug. So Amy, what I'm going to do is ask that you just email us at help@ovv.io and say this is like, give us a link to the event that you're working on so that we can see it. And
okay, I can send you a screenshot.
Yeah, what I will tell you is if I can't actually think of a time when.
No, I'm looking at your broadcast right now, and albeit that you have a lot of broadcasts in there, I still see the duplicate.
Okay. Because it seems like I can't, maybe it's too far down on the page and I can't go down any further to get to it. I don't know.
Want to share?
Yeah, so I just if you scroll down, I just duplicated the top one and it's now the bottom one, and you'll see it's June 7th. I think that might be what it is.
Let me go find it. I'm not there
Yeah,
yet.
have a look and let us know. But I think it's just a matter of the scroll working. I scrolled to the bottom and I've created a new one there that's not enabled.
I see it.
You can see that? Okay,
Yeah.
great.
But before this, I couldn't get down far enough to see the new ones. So
Yeah, and sometimes it could even be that's a panel within the dashboard that if that's not active, then it may not be scrolling. And so depending on where your mouse is, I mean,
okay.
not to be talking very basic computer skills here, but not to offend you. Do you know how the mouse works? No, I'm not trying to say
Turn
that.
on your
But
computer.
yeah, that's right. Are you sitting in front of it? No, but if but there might be something there. And if you find it again and you say, actually, now I can see that if I'm on this section, it won't scroll, and on this section it does, that could be the bug, and would be interested in that if you find something funky there.
If I find it again, I'll let you know. Thank
Well,
you.
yeah, and you're in a unique position because of the number of broadcasts you've got in that list. So,
okay. Thank you. And you know what? It's like driving your car. I hear this noise, but when I get to the mechanic, it's not there anymore.
Well, you don't know this, but Obvio is actually scared of Grant and I. So every time we try to do something, it's like, all right, we'll work properly. So just we're lucky that way.
And unlike the mechanic, we won't just charge you $800 just because.
There's that.
Well,
Thank you.
Oh, there's a scrolling fee.
Sometimes we do. So that's different. All right. Next
I
question.
had to scroll to the bottom. There's an $800 fee for that.
All right. Heather Jenkins.
Marianne said, I'm a new user. What is the best way to start? I know watching the videos, but anything else you suggest?
So the thing that I would do to get started is actually to play around with the platform, right? So log in, create an event, pick a template. Before you pick the template, click on the different samples and actually look at the sample pages, because all of the 5 different samples that you can see are the same content with the 5 different templates. So you can really get a good sense of what the 5 different templates look like, and then pick the one that feels most like you. And then start going through and customizing it. Go to the dashboard and swap out the logo and insert your own, create a button and change the color of it. Go to the sidebar if you've picked a template that has a sidebar and change the color of the sidebar. Just try playing around with it. You can also, I would probably create my first event using sample data. So when you're creating a new event, there's an option to, under the template, there's start with no data, like start with an empty template, and one that is start with sample data. I would start with sample data so that you can see it and then you can make changes to it. So the best way to get started, clearly, yes, watch the videos, but really the best way to get started is to start playing with the platform. And, it doesn't have to be for a real event, right? You can ask a friend to join you on Zoom. I don't remember who it was, but we had somebody who signed up a couple months ago.
Noelle.
Yeah. She had a Zoom call for a family vacation that she was going to be doing later that month. And she did it on Obvio so that she could test out the platform and see what it was like. I thought that was a really cool way of just playing with it, right? And it doesn't cost you anything to do. There's no fee associated with it. You're not using up credits or anything like that. You have unlimited events, right? For up to 500 people. So use a couple of them. Try it out. So
yeah, and if you do have a community that you're running these events from, then a free Q&A session for an hour is a great way to run. And you just say, we're testing out a system. We're going to run a free Q&A session. Come along and hang out. We're going to do it. And we've seen a few people that do that to great effect, because it actually builds the community. You're testing some features. They know that you're testing, and so things might be a little clunky here and there, and that's fine. And you're really able to test it with real people, and you've got some good content that people are asking questions and things in the process as well. So that can work great.
Cool. All right. Next question.
Next one is from Dorita. Will the update to Zoom regarding the continuous chat and pre-event chat be integrated into Obvio?
No. And Dorita, I'll tell you, generally speaking, why. That feature, as far as I understand it, requires attendees to be logged into their own Zoom accounts in order for it to function, right? So for that to work, it's all people who are connected to the same Zoom account, right? For the pre-meeting and the post-meeting chat. So that continuous meeting chat is really a feature that's designed for companies. So because what Zoom is trying to do for that feature is they're trying to take on Slack as a communication tool, right? So they're saying, here's our version of Slack. And then when you go into your Zoom meeting, you get to that continuous chat, which is from your Slack account or your Zoom's version of Slack. And then when you leave the Zoom meeting, you go back to that continuous chat. They're all in your account. They have to have Zoom accounts in order for that function to work. And first off, you don't have a Zoom account inside of Obvio, right? So that's problem number one. And problem number two is none of your attendees do, and they're certainly not in the same organization. So while it's a really interesting feature for Zoom users, it's not one that applies to events, generally speaking, and not one that will be integrated into Obvio. So the answer is no, that's the short answer, but there's a longer answer, which is it won't because, right? And these are the reasons why.
Yeah, and just one extra further thing to that, and that's the extra security that we have with Obvio and Zoom is that no real emails are being passed through to Zoom. And so it's a whole nother reason that attendees aren't able to make that work. And we like the low friction way of people being able to enter our events where they're not having to log into anything, especially not logging into Zoom. But yeah, it is a Slack takeover. It's also like a Teams thing as well, like Microsoft Teams, where you have these meetings that exist and they can continue and whatever. But I think, but the fact that there is interest from our Obvio users is a good indicator for us because there's something about that that's of interest, right? So Dorita, you're asking because, and I'm guessing, and tell me if I'm wrong, but you like the idea of outside of the event, people still being able to communicate with each other in a really easy way. And that's the thing that just is ticking over in my mind is what does that mean? What does it mean before and after an event that our attendees could somehow communicate with each other? And I'm just playing around with the idea. Does that sound like that's why you're interested in it, Dorita?
Mainly that piece that, was actually attractive even in their Zoom events, which was, like outside of the event in the waiting room and being able to chat. And then there was sort of that continuous chat ahead of time. But I did notice it said once people are registered for the event. So that was part of why I was asking, because it's like, okay, it's still controlled because you kind of know who it is and you know that they're already coming to the meeting, they're in the meeting. So it's only between those people. But for me, it's not like, oh, wow, I'm not disappointed, but just wanted to know whether or not, because then you have people who they do know how Zoom works now and they may be used to certain features, but you can't, just knowing what you can and cannot do. Right now, we still outweigh all the positives, of what Obvio can do over regular Zoom. And so that's what I was looking at.
Great.
Thank you.
Cool. Yeah. Next question.
All right. Tamara said, hi, Blue and Grant, using the cards template, is there a way to make the buttons a little more slender in nature? I thought I figured it out and can see it on my dashboard, but when I look at it as an attendee, they look short and chunky. Not sure if the style, not sure through style if I can use a picture to replace.
So the cards template is the one template that has a fairly unique button system, right? Because the button system works inside of this cluster that can be 2 rows, and each row can have multiple buttons in it. And you can do a couple of things to those, to those buttons.
I just sent you the dashboard if you want to take a look.
Yeah, thank you. That's just awesome. Okay, so if we go to the dashboard here, And if I were to go to preview it. Okay, so I see what you're saying in that, if you're trying to have it long and narrow like that, you may want to modify the button width, right? To be, 80% or 85% or even 100%. And now when you preview it, it'll actually do that. So if that's what you're trying to accomplish, then the button width right here under main nav is how wide an area the button takes up when you only have one button, or honestly when you have all of the multiple buttons. So I think that may give you the answer, because if you're trying to make it look like it does when you're previewing it, you were down in the 30 range, I think is what I saw when I first logged in. So you have this narrow button, and if what you're trying to accomplish is have a button like it is right here, edit, and then change the width to like 80 or 85, and then click save. And now under preview, it's still nice and wide. So that may accomplish what you're trying to accomplish. Hope that helps.
All right. So Robin asked, when she was exporting the report, she didn't have all the information that we spoke about earlier. She only has information on first, last, email, login URL, signed waiver, tech check completed, tags.
Yep.
I think she might be in the area.
Yeah, so what you're doing, if that was that, Robin, what you're doing is you're exporting the attendees from the attendees tab. And when you go to, so if I were to go to the attendees tab, there's an export attendees function here. But if we go to Zoom areas, there's an export attendees function here. This is the export attendees function that you're looking for that will give you the attendance data for this particular area. So that's what you're looking for. And when you do it from there, then it'll include the information you're talking about.
All right. Heather asked, we add the pixel in Obvio. Will data show up where? Heather, you might want to unmute. I'm not sure if I understood the question written.
Yeah, so the pixels, I think it was last time or 2 weeks ago, you had shared to actually add the pixels in some Zapiers for data, so we can see how many people actually clicking, because all of our events right now are free, and they're going to another event to do the high ticket. So we had a successful event this week, and I added a bunch of pixels, like the Facebook and the Google, and then also the Zapier. And so I was just curious, is that in the dashboard somewhere, or do we need to go into Google and Facebook to get that data?
If it is a Google pixel or script, or a Facebook pixel or script, or a Zapier pixel or script, you're going to get the information from those platforms.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, that was easy.
She also had, the next question was from Heather also. Any idea on the time frame for GHL plus Obvio?
For which? Oh, go high level.
Yeah.
My hope is that it will be done by the end of July. It's we have the concept done. So the first thing when we start on a new integration, the first thing we need to figure out is how do users use that platform. And most CRMs are pretty similar, but we have to get familiar with the terminology. We have to get familiar with how tagging works inside those platforms, if there is tagging. Sure. We have to get familiar with how broadcasts work and how custom fields work. Then we have to get familiar with their API and what we can do with an API and what we can't.
Okay.
And then we have to see how it works and plays compared to some of the other integrations that we've built, so that we can come up with a concept or a direction as to what can be used and what can be created within Obvio. So we have the concept down. We have the familiarity with the platform itself, and Go High Level introduces a whole interesting set of issues because of the fact that it's a reseller-based program, right? So we have
right.
So we had to figure out how to work with sub accounts, not just the primary account.
Right.
So so it is a slightly more complicated integration, but we have at least now the concept. And we've also selected how, what is the identifier that is going to identify an attendee within Go High Level, right? So it's going to be a tag, but there's something unique about Go High Level's API in that tags, it's either tags or custom fields. I think it's tags.
Like
when we
fields.
search for, no, I believe it's tags, but there's something around when we look for a certain tag, it doesn't just look for within tags, it also looks within custom fields. And if the name is within the tag and happens to also be within a custom field, then it's a little screwy. So, one of the unique things that we need to do with Go High Level is we are actually going to tell you the tag that you need to identify your attendees with. So that's the difference with Go High Level to other systems. When you go and set up the integration, we're going to say to you, rather than you tell us what tag identifies your attendees, we're going to tell you what tag you have to use to identify your attendees. And then you go into Go High Level and you tag all those attendees with that particular tag, as well as modify any custom workflows or processes or sequences to tag those attendees on registration. So it's a little bit different, but it works in all of our testing. And now the team is actually building out the back end.
Just to throw a wrench in that, of course. So like we're right now doing a free event now going every week, but it's different in the world of Obvio. It's under same organization, but different event, right?
Yep.
So in like that case, right? Because now we're going through Zapier, and 2 weeks ago we had Zapier completely just disconnected and didn't give us a notification. It was a disaster. So with that, my question to you is, as you're thinking that through, in our special case where we're doing an event every single week, would we be doing a different tag for each different event every single week?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Just thinking that through, because usually people have like space between events, right? So in this case, we're going like every 4 days. So cool.
But yes, the tag will be different for each event.
Oh, got it. It's going to almost be a unique tag for each event.
Correct.
That makes sense. Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, thank you for that.
You are welcome.
Okay. So Pam said, my client wants to offer suggested donation to attend the event. 1, do you have any suggestions to share why this is not the best idea? 2, can I have an upgrade/registration on the dashboard? And 3, my client wants to have the dashboard open to attendees before the event, almost as marketing. Would it be advised to have a register button to upgrade? Maybe similar to current question about the preview event.
First off, the basically pick your price model is a challenging one. I've seen some clients use like a PayPal me link to allow attendees to basically do whatever whatever amount they want to give, and then set up some sort of zap between PayPal and Obvio to identify people who have paid. So I guess that's doable. I don't see any real downside to letting attendees get access to the dashboard in advance. From a strategy perspective, the only reason that I would do that is if there was actually a reason to go to the dashboard, right? If it was just like, hey, look, this is your dashboard, but it then doesn't change until the day of the event, I will tell you, we don't do that. I prefer to have attendees get access to the dashboard the week of the event rather than like weeks before the event. But that's personal preference. I think it works really well for us, but I have some clients who give people access to the dashboard weeks in advance, sometimes months in advance. And like I said, provide content on the dashboard leading up to the event. There's no downside to doing that. I think I answered the question, right, Heather? Was there more to it than that?
Do you guys have? I'm not sure if you answered this as part of it, but would you advise to have a register button to upgrade on there? Is that part of that?
I would, yeah. I mean, if you have, so we do that for TVE for our event, right? If you register and you're a general admission attendee that like you paid $97, there's an upgrade to all access button for non-all access attendees on the dashboard. And once you that takes you to a page off of Obvio, right? In that case, I think it takes you to a ClickFunnels page that allows you to upgrade to all access. And then when you upgrade to all access, technically what we're doing is we are tagging your contact record inside of Infusionsoft or Keep. And then our integration with Keep is updating the contact record in Obvio with the all access tag. So the upgrade to all access button disappears. So those are essentially the steps that we're doing. And we do put a button that allows people to upgrade on the dashboard. And I think it's advisable unless you don't want people to upgrade.
All right.
And there may be a reason why you don't want people to upgrade. Like, I'm not saying that to be cheeky, right? Like you may have an upgrade window and people, it doesn't make sense for them to upgrade once the event starts. Like that may be a real thing, but if it's not, then
we do want them to upgrade. I'm trying to get my clients to not go with a free event. They just want to do this donation thing, and I don't think it's a good idea. So my suggestion was, and it was discussed earlier with another person earlier on this call, was to have the dashboard open and have them be able to see they want to see what the dashboard's going to look like before the event. So they're learning about.
If you're saying the user is wanting to see the dashboard before the event, I can pretty much universally promise you, no attendee cares what the dashboard is going to look like for the event. They don't even know what the dashboard is. When somebody registers for the event, even if you tell them you're going to get access to a dashboard, that's not what they care about when they register. I can, like, having done a lot of this, right? We have had of the let's say I think it's now like 2.3 million attendees have gone through Obvio. Of those attendees, more than half of them, like way more than half of them, have been Sage events. And without exception, or without, let me just say, with exceptionally few exceptions, we don't give people access to the dashboard until the week of the event. And we never get an email from people saying, hey, when do I get, like, why don't I see the dashboard? I really am excited to see what the dashboard looks like. That doesn't happen because they don't know what it is, right? And it's also because I don't use it as a selling point because it's not really a selling feature for an event. So from a marketing perspective, I talk about what the outcome is by attending the event. The dashboard has nothing to, the dashboard may technically have something to do with it, obviously, because they go through the dashboard, but we don't talk about the dashboard in advance because, oh, and you're going to get this very special dashboard that is going to allow you to have come into the event. Attendees, when they register for your event, expect some way to get into the event, right? That's an expectation. It's like when you call an Uber, I expect 4 wheels on the car. So when you talk about expectations like that, that's not something your attendees are looking for. I can almost 100% promise you, none of your attendees care what the dashboard is going to look like. Your client may, but your attendees don't.
Yeah, it's the client. The client is wanting to know more and more about Obvio.
And your client can access, you can give your client access to the dashboard all day long in advance, but you don't need to give, and we do that all the time, right? I have clients who, again, I'm going to put my Sage hat on rather than my Obvio hat. We build dashboards every week, multiple dashboards every week for clients, right? And for every single client, we give them a link, an attendee link into the dashboard so that they can go and look at it, because I want them to look at it. I don't want them to not look at the dashboard, because they have to sign off on it because we're designing it, right? So they have to log into the dashboard and look at it. So I give them a link and I say, here, click on this and make sure this is what you're going to be looking at. Oftentimes it's not me, really, our team does it. But our team will, provide them sometimes with a Loom video, like a screen capture, and be like, here, when you click on this link, this is what's going to happen. Click here, click here, click here. This is what this looks like. Please review it and let us know if you have any questions or changes, and we'll talk to you on our next call. So that's how we do it from a Sage perspective.
Good explanation. Thank you. I'll get that through to them.
Cool.
Okay. Pam's next question was there a preferred Obvio dashboard design? Can you flash show each design? So far, I've only used the original one.
So what I am going to do is we provide it. So your best bet, Pam, or I think that was Pam who asked the question, is just to go into the event and go into template, any event, and go into templates, and you're going to see the 5 templates listed. And just right here, it says view sample dashboard. So if you want to see it, you click on that, and that will open up a new tab. My internet here is kind of crappy. If you want to see the lefty template, click there. It'll open up a new tab, right? If you want to see the Nifty 50, click that. It'll open up a new tab. And you can then, click and look at the different samples, sample templates. So that's what I would do, and just explore, right? And you can literally do that from any event. I don't know what event I'm actually in, to be honest with you. But any event, you can literally just click on the template window and give that a try.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Okay, the next question is from Heather. We're doing a free event and some people need to have it translate to Spanish. Do we have this feature?
You can provide translated text into Spanish. Obvio doesn't do the translation. So what we have is we have a translation system that allows, we call it a translation system, but it doesn't actually do the translation. What it does is it allows you to add different languages to the dashboard and then provide the translated text for Spanish, the translated text for, whatever. But that's if you're having multiple languages. If you're just building a Spanish dashboard, you don't turn on the translation feature. You just go in and provide the Spanish text. So,
okay, hold on. So they're doing everything in English, but we're in Texas and we have a heavy Hispanic population, and they're requesting, hey, is there a closed caption in Spanish option with Zoom? No,
there isn't.
Okay. How are you describing it? Because I have in my head a different way. So how were you just describing it just then?
What I was talking about was having the dashboard display text in multiple languages.
Oh, right. So we just create a second dashboard in Spanish. Oh, huh. Okay.
No,
yeah, we don't have that many enough.
That's not what you would do. There's actually there's a capability of each event to provide multiple languages. So it's not actually creating a second dashboard. It's the same dashboard, but using the translation functionality to provide translated text in the different languages that you provide.
I haven't seen that feature. Can you show that?
I'm going to let Heather, James, this is another one of those features that is it's a complicated
thing. It's not
but there is a recording that we have already done on it, and Heather just dropped it into the chat for you, and gave you the timestamp to go to watch it afterwards. And if you have any questions, email us about it. It's pretty simple to use once you know how to use it, but it takes a little bit to wrap your head around how to use it.
So quick question, if I do that, I'm sure I'll get a lot of questions answered. If obviously we're doing English in English, when does the consumer, the person, tell us, do we need to know that this person needs the Spanish translation somehow?
In
like
an
a
ideal
tagging?
scenario, you know who your Spanish people are, because then you can set, like, with either a tag or a group, the system, if you tell Obvio inside contact records Spanish, English, Spanish, English, Spanish, English, Spanish, English, then you can set up the translation feature can be set up to default to English, or it can also be set up to use rules to display the language based on tags or groups. But beyond that, when you go to a dashboard that has translation turned on, there's a little languages button in the bottom right hand corner that appears, and the attendee can click on that and select Spanish.
Oh, great. Okay, so in the
so that-
customer journey, we don't actually have to know, but it'd be nice if we had them. We knew that.
Yeah, and then what I'll say to you is there currently is not a captions in Spanish feature.
Okay, got it. So when you're saying this translation, it really is just the dashboard. It's not Zoom, correct?
Correct. Yeah, there is an interpreter function inside of Zoom that you can use. So if you had a live interpreter who would listen in English and talk in Spanish, and I still don't fully understand how that brain works, but there is the possibility of doing that inside of Zoom, and that functionality is turned on by default on all meetings.
Got it.
So
but that would, we'd have to have a human being doing that, not an AI or something.
Correct.
Okay, I'll watch that. And I'm assuming there's, because I haven't seen anything, do I need to ask for that feature to be turned on from my account, or is it on?
No, it's on for everybody.
Okay, great.
It's just not a function. It's just not a function that people generally use. It's under features, and then translations down at the bottom.
It's not like a have to, right? We are getting, because this is a free event and we're doing ads. So we had like 300 people last week. So we're, like, well, what if, because one of our main speakers, she's fluent in Spanish in Texas.
Yeah. So here's the thing that I would say, I'm going to just throw this one out there.
Yeah.
The only way that it makes sense to do translation for your live event is if you are then going to provide translation for whatever the upsell is after the event. And if you're not, and here's the problem with this, right? Because it's a metric, this is a numbers game, right? So if you have 100 people show up, but only 5 of them are Spanish, and your average conversion rate is 10%, then you're not likely to get very many Spanish buyers, right? So you're going to spend a bunch of money, time, and effort on these 5 people who speak Spanish. And while I appreciate that on the front end, I'm guessing your ads are in English. They're not in Spanish, right? If you're doing ads in Spanish, then I understand it. But if you're doing all your ads in English and the page is in English and everything else is in English, then all of a sudden, to provide Spanish translation, you're adding a layer of complication for a free event. And then after the fact, you're probably not going to then provide Spanish translation for the course or the program or the whatever for the half a person who purchases every second event. So
valid. It's valid, because then you can't move Spanish all the way through to the end, to the high ticket offer, into the fulfillment. Valid.
Exactly. And if you can't do that, why would you even offer it on the front end? Like, you're just confusing your marketplace by telling them, yeah, we're kind of Spanish, but not really.
Right. All right. I'm gonna look at this. Thank you for that. But I'm probably gonna tell the client right now, let's hold off, because I agree. We're not through the through line, right? Through the whole through line, we can't fulfill 100% on Spanish.
Yeah. So, and if you can't fulfill on the back end, it makes it challenging on the front end, right? Because what you wind up, I've done this, right? Because we have had clients who have tried this and have, we have clients who don't take our advice. I don't know why. They spend a lot of money with us, and then they ask us our opinion, and we tell them, and then they do something else. Whatever. It happens, right? It happens to you as well, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So we tell clients exactly what I just told you. And I've had them then say, no, we're going to do it anyway. And then, because we're going to get a lot of Spanish speaking people, and then we're going to get a lot of buyers. And then what winds up happening for a big event, right, where you have like 1,000 Spanish speaking people, and compared to 50,000 English speaking people.
Right.
And then you wind up with like 5 buyers. And then they realize that for those 5 buyers, it's going to cost them more than the enrollment fees for the actual translation fees for the whole year. Right. And now it's like, why did I even do this? I'm like, I don't know. I don't, why did you do this? Because I told you you shouldn't.
It's a good point. That's why I'm like, they're one of those clients. I would say they can possibly do it or we shouldn't do it. And they'd be like, let's do it. I'm like, we're not there, So thank you.
This is definitely one of those things where just because you should doesn't mean
you should.
Just because you can doesn't mean you should.
I concur because we cannot throw on the through line whatsoever. So fulfill the through line. So cool. All right. Thank you for that advice. I will take your advice. Thank you very much.
Awesome.
All right. Lady Harry says, how close is white labeling with domain? Also, any HIPAA availability?
White labeling with domain, we are working on, and I will just say by the end of the year is our target for that. One of the things that had to happen is that new infrastructure that I told you about at the beginning of this call, thanks to Bez asking his question. Bez is like, wait, what, me? So now that we have that new infrastructure, it has opened up the capability for us to build out the custom domain feature. That feature is on the docket, and our goal is to have it done by the end of the year. What was the other half of that question?
The other part is HIPAA. And HIPAA is specifically related to private health information. And so we don't capture any health information, thankfully. We try to capture as little as information as we can about our customers and or our attendees, and then it's for you perhaps using a different system that you're capturing other information. So the only thing that we need for an attendee is first, last, and email, first name, last name, email. If you are capturing health information in a form, then don't. That's a tricky thing, and you want to be really careful about that. And so as it stands, I mean, we are HIPAA compliant in that we don't capture health information or store it, and so. But if, as I said, if you are doing some sort of form or something where you are capturing specific health information about individual attendees, you would need to be particularly careful about how it's on you to manage that from a HIPAA point of view.
The reality is you can't manage it. That's the bigger problem. So
right.
I think your answer,
there is no way to
if you're worried
be
about
HIPAA compliant.
No, exactly. Right. So the answer is, if you're capturing health data inside of forms, to Grant's point, if you would like to be HIPAA compliant, don't do that.
Don't do that. Yeah.
All right. The next question is from Pam. She wants to know if we can post graphic dimensions for speaker photos, favicons, other graphics on the dashboard.
No. And we've
I'm needing the link. I'm needing the link. There was a link out there that had the dimensions for when we're designing the.
Oh, sure. It's in
the link that I had from before is no longer active. So I wanted the new link with the.
You know what she's talking about?
Yeah, there's one on the help.obvio.
Cool. Pam, we'll drop it in the chat for you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay. Stacy said, what is the best way to send a link of an audio recording to a client? For example, I recorded an audio guided visualization and want a hyperlink for access. If it was a video, I would use YouTube or Vimeo, etc., but not sure what to do about audio.
That's a great question. I actually don't use any audio sharing services. So what I would probably do if I was trying to do something like that is I would load it onto Dropbox or Google Drive and send them a Google Drive link or a Dropbox link. I don't have anything else.
Okay, it looks like we are all caught up.
Look at us go, right under the wire at 6:54 p.m., 6 minutes left. You guys are awesome. Awesome.
Lou, tell us your top secret stuff.
No, I'm not doing it. It's not happening. Don't do it. Don't make me. This is really interesting. Hey, all right. Hey, Heather, say something. Like, just tell me a quick story. What did you do this weekend?
So this weekend I studied because I had my first chronic health test, which took up literally every second of my life, and I had almost a mental breakdown over it. But I ended up passing the test. Was that a good enough story?
Yeah, that is a good enough story. I was trying to get captions to display. Oh no, there it is. Okay, so I don't know if this is, yeah, I really don't know if this is by accident or what it is. But
are you looking
hey,
at the translation section?
I am. I'm looking at the captions and spoken language. I was kind of
Yeah,
curious about that.
it's fairly new, but the way that it works is you can set your spoken language and it will show up in someone else's native tongue. So like if I'm speaking to you in Korean and you can read it in English, if you're speaking to me in Korean, you know, or if I need to see it in Korean, your English turns into Korean on that transcript. It's fairly new. They just did it like the last couple months, maybe couple downloads.
Yeah, so you know what's interesting about this is this was, and Grant, I'd love to look into this on our end, but this was supposed to be a part of this originally. When I saw it, it wasn't going to be, or the last conversation I had with Zoom was that this was not a feature that was going to be accessible to our type of account. And this is one of those things that I had no idea how they were going to actually hide that, because there's a lot of stuff that they say like that isn't actually true, but whatever. But it seems to work. So
the thing to know about it, because this is passion for me, but the thing to know about it is that some of the languages are still in beta. So some of the Eastern languages, specifically Korean, Chinese, are still in beta. And the thing that doesn't translate are cultural things. So for example, in those languages, how you address someone might be a very specific word. So those are the things that don't seem to be, that don't seem to translate. That's what's been explained to me, that the translation is pretty good, but the thing in those languages is the cultural. So if you're talking to someone who might be offended by that, then you wouldn't want to use that particular feature. But it's a pretty solid translation. But it's just the cultural stuff that is still they're trying to figure it out how to do it.
yeah, I'm trying right now to see, like, I just changed my translation to French, or my spoken word language to French, because I can kind of read French, not very well, but I can get by. And it is nowhere near close to anything of value, which is interesting.
Yeah, it's fairly new. It's not great. It's passable if you need it for that.
Yeah, that's interesting though. All right. Yeah, I mean, like maybe somebody may be able to possibly understand what the heck you're saying. All right. That's interesting. Okay. Awesome. Well, with the really lots of sun in my camera's face, I'm going to say thanks everybody for an awesome call. Lots of you showed up. A few of you asked questions. Next time, you guys can all ask questions. promise we'll get through as many of them as we can. And generally speaking, we go until there aren't any questions left. So you guys have done a great job of asking questions to get us to, have conversations. Always appreciate this and love seeing what you guys are doing with this platform. So with that, I'm just going to say I'll see you next week. Next week's call is going to be an AM call, so 8 a.m. Eastern time. For those of you in Europe, you'll appreciate that. For those of you in California, you're not going to like it, but show up anyway. They're worth it. And come with your questions, and who knows, maybe next week we'll have some new news for you. Thanks, everybody. Have an amazing, amazing day. Grant, do you have any words of wisdom to close this out?
Any closing thoughts? School run is going really well so far, as I'm dropping off my kids, so that's all good. No, the translation thing I have played around with a little bit. We'll do a little bit more playing with it, but I have always thought with that translation in the same language is already difficult and can be a little dangerous sometimes and can be offensive, right? That's picking up words that are totally incorrect and can be offensive. And so then do it in another language is even trickier. But with some of the advancements in AI, I think some of that's coming too, which will be even better. So yeah, it's something to watch.
Well, and truthfully,
Anyway.
the one thing that I was kind of hoping for when I went into the languages section was to see if there was like English Australian, so that I could get that translated. But so far, no luck on that.
No hope. It's the Canadian one that I have trouble with. Sorry is something that comes through really clearly from the Canadian translation. So that's good.
That's awesome. All right, guys. Well, thanks again for an awesome week. We'll talk to you next week.